States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. One state under God.
I did learn that
one. Okay, I'm going to declare a quorum of 5, and hope that sometime soon a president can take over the presiding position of this group rather than me. Does anybody have any comments before we get down to the old business agenda?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
As you know, there's a city council election going on.
Here.
And I'm part of that group along with Nick Neeson and Ed Villarreal. And the three of us have stated one thing that's pertinent to the Parks Foundation. And if we are in office, the Parks Foundation will be reinstated in the city of Floresville.
So you mean be able to meet in the city hall?
And have access to money and everything else. Yes.
Well, down in new business, we're going to discuss that tonight, but anything else? Okie dokie, old business. I haven't read the minutes of the meeting, but I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded that we approve the minutes of the March 11, 2020 meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
Bless you.
Whoa, something's in this room. Tickling my schnoz.
No, it's no flying about.
Okay, minutes are approved from the last meeting. 1B, unresolved issue with city's denial of city facility use by foundation. I think
I'll cover that one.
Paul just got that started. Yes, sir.
I just want to know that the city manager has failed on 2 or 3 of my email requests asking for the name or names of those on the city council that put the prohibition on us using the city facilities. So
I don't think it was a city council member.
I don't know exactly who it was either, but
Sherry's absolutely right. The city council had no voice in it, period. It was done exactly with...
I'd like to be able to prove it, but I can't.
Well, I get access to all those minutes of all the city council meetings. It was never brought up in the city council.
Yeah, which...
It was a Henrietta, it was a city manager.
It could have been Henrietta on her own, but I'd be willing to bet it was somebody else. But as I say,
Well,
I can't prove it.
you're 100% right, it was somebody else. His name is Tejada, Daniel.
Well,
I was told Ortiz.
yeah. So, as far as point B is concerned, this is not going to be resolved until we see how the election goes next week. Do I understand that right, Paul?
Yeah, we should have a clear, I was just at Wilson County, we should have a clear news no matter what on Wednesday morning. And it looks like currently we're in very good shape.
Okay.
Well, with that in mind, I would think that at the November regular meeting, we ought to have an agenda item to somehow or another approach the city council and you know, it's ridiculous.
Well,
They talked about the Leo, I was told that with the, you know, Leos couldn't use it, and FEDC has got a place in the building over there, and I personally think that because of my tenure and how vocal I was in the past in talking to the city council and trying to get this foundation up and going back in 2013, that it's all a personal vendetta.
well, that may very well be, but the fact of the matter is that alone, that by itself, is absolutely unconscionable.
Well, the other thing that really is aggravating with that is the relationship back with the city council. Had it not been for Mr. Sack getting an email last week, I knew nothing, and I know you knew nothing, until I copied the email that Paul sent dealing with that new park that was set up
the
over
ribbon
there in
cutting?
Lodi.
Yeah.
We have not been asked to come to the hike and bike trail, and they've had meetings throughout this COVID crap, and we had volunteered, what, a year ago or better?
Yep.
To help work with that particular
Well,
project.
see, all along, I thought we were in there. I thought that was one of our projects, the hike and bike trail. And it never seemed to come up in a meeting, and I always kind of expected it to, but it never did, and so on and so forth. So, somebody made a comment recently about having gotten on the hike and bike trail with their bike and having a lot of trouble because it was so rough and hard on the rider and hard on the bike and blah, blah, blah. Well, and yeah, it's not developed.
It's a stone pathway.
It's not developed.
Road days.
Yeah. And by the way, it was in the fall of 2019. Looking for a timeline. That never mind. I'll pull it together.
Well, you're saying it's a stone pathway. Remember, it is a railroad right-of-way, and under the railroad ties is stone. When they pull up the ties, they don't remove the stone, and that's why it's a stone pathway. Great. Stone, that makes a good base, but it needs to have some development so that when people are walking, they don't turn their ankle, and people are riding their bikes, they don't destroy their bike tires and all of that, you know. So, back to Doug here for a minute. You brought up something. Do you want to make any kind of a motion that we?
I just think we need to follow up on it and stop the lack of support, which would lead us, you know, down to the discussion area for you on in new business. I don't know that we need a motion or whatever, but we can
Okay.
continue to carry it as an old business.
Okay.
Unless when we get into new business, when we talk about the foundation's future, there's quite a lot that's going to be on the plate with that particular item. That's going to be
Yeah.
a fact.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that you had said what you wanted to say. And
Yeah.
So, any other comments or
But
questions?
I would point out though that unless, because tonight, the old business again was that we need a foundation president. We still don't know yet until the election is done if Paul would put the hat back on, so that would only leave one person here, and I believe that's Gail, if she wanted to sit, to become the president of the foundation. If not, then we can exclude and then wait until the November meeting
Well,
to settle out the score, because with
Because
item,
I'm not- I don't
2B.
know enough about it or anything else.
yeah,
I'm
well,
just learning.
you sure would learn quick, I guarantee
well, after we
you.
do 2B, then maybe you'd like to become the treasurer.
Well, if we're done with 1B, brings us to 1C, which Doug and Gail were just discussing.
So there'll be no action.
Until we get a unanimous attendance, seems to me we're gonna have a hard time finding a president. And I don't mind being an interim presiding officer, but I'm really not interested in being the president. I'll do whatever it takes to get us from one meeting to the next until we find a president, and then,
Well, Jerry, we're all here because of you. You've hung on and worked with this thing over the last seven months. And
Yep.
thank you for that.
Yes.
And
well, I just figured if I was gonna take the position, I might as well do something with it, not sit around with one thumb in my nose and one in my mouth playing switch.
My dad.
So, okay, so we want to put that on the table. Anybody want to make a motion? We table letter C until next meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Second, motion made and seconded to table letter C. And do I hear all in favor?
Aye.
It sounds unanimous to me, so it is on the table until the next meeting. We'll discuss more about the next meeting before we quit here. New business, number 2, letter A, discussion of the foundation's future. That's got my name on it, so let me say this. In light of tonight's points that were made about where we meet, why we can't meet in the city hall, et cetera, et cetera. I want to add this. Going last Friday to that ribbon cutting was one of the most depressing things I have done in a long time. It was a wonderful ceremony. Everybody had nice things to say. There wasn't one mention of Floresville in the whole damn thing.
What are you
Now,
talking about?
Lodi Park is basically, until recently, a basketball court with it's got about 4 goals on it, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And a couple of restrooms and a drinking fountain,
Couple of
and so
benches.
forth.
Yeah.
Well, we went in there, last year it was, and we did some remodeling and repairing and updating and so forth. Put some marks on the concrete slab so they could know where their goals were and where their out of bounds were and all that stuff.
When was that?
Last year
Last
sometime. And,
well,
and
we went out and we purchased the paint. We went out and purchased the park benches. We
That's
went out
right.
and purchased the nets and everything else.
And by the way, about 4 weeks ago, I had to get out of my house because the real estate people were showing it off to clients. And I came in and I decided to make the parks. And I drove into Lodi Park and went around on the opposite side from where you enter. And I looked at the basketball goals and those brand new hoops without chains, without nets, were hanging down. You know, I didn't do anything and they hang on them and they pull them down. Well, okay, fine. I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying that when I went out there Friday, suddenly, lo and behold, no nets, but at least the hoops were up. Well, that got explained by this young lady who sort of emceed the whole damn thing. I can't think of her name.
Cantu?
I believe that's right.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem.
Who was it, Greg?
You're talking about Charlotte
Charlotte.
Jimenez Nelson.
Oh, yeah.
I remember Charlotte.
Ben Reed's assistant, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So she explained in the meeting, in the ceremony, that the parks people, maintenance people, had been out there before they started doing all this stuff, and before they had this ribbon cutting and blah 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 blah, on and on and on. And so that's when I just assumed that the parks maintenance people had either repaired or replaced those hoops. Anyway, long story short, I'm sorry I'm going on a lot longer than I intended to here. The depressing part of this was, you would have thought we were listening to a bunch of people in a completely separate city. This girl points in this direction, in the general direction of that grocery store that used to be across from the baseball diamond at the Catholic Church.
Super
I just live by the crow flies about 100 yards right that way. There wasn't one word in that whole thing about Floresville. Now, Floresville is an incorporated by the state of Texas city, and it's over 150 years old, as I recall. Not one word about the city of Floresville. And I'm thinking, what in the world is going on? And by the time I left there, I was just sort of shaking my head. It's bad enough that this this foundation that was created by the city can't even meet in the city hall, but our efforts along the lines, the only thing that happens is somebody goes on our website and belly aches because the restrooms aren't working, or they found animal feces on the walking pads, or whatever. Wait a minute, we don't maintain them, we build them, we improve them. We don't even get mentioned for any of that in a ribbon cutting that we were completely left out of. Completely. Now, if we're gonna keep going, I think the city has to back us up. And this business of us having to call on the county, these poor old dispatchers had to unlock the door. They were locking up when I got here, about 10 to 6. And fortunately, I got here just about the time they were locking up, because there was a lady outside needing to go to the restroom so bad. She was in bad shape, bless her heart. But at any rate, we need to not have to meet here. I don't mind meeting here. That's not the point. The point is, it's the Floresville Parks Foundation Board.
I need to throw a little background that I leave those that didn't know. Paul and myself last year showed up. It was actually a co-sponsored event with Dr. Sherry Wise and the FISD, who had the kids and whatever else from the school district people, along with the FEDC. And during my visit there, after they were still painting and doing whatever, Ben Reed, who is the paid I don't know what his position's actually called.
Executive director is what
Of the
I.
FEDC.
Ben had pointed out that there was some property, and if you're standing on the south side, which is the same side where the restrooms are at, he motioned back over to the west-northwest that there was some land over there that the city thought they would be able to get. That was the last that I'd heard of it or seen it. When Paul's email came in, what was that, Thursday? And I shotgunned
That's
it.
the area where they put the.
Yeah, but I thought it was
pavilion.
across the street, catty corner. I thought it was a bigger place because it was going to be a bigger park.
Well, she called it an open field. It's probably 150 by 60 feet.
And I didn't go down and read the actual signage and see what was in there. But to see the efforts of everybody since the beginning of this foundation has given of themselves. We've had some good times, and we've done a few things that are very good to do. But whatever the animosity is and why it's there, it just.
So
Gail?
what did the school have to do with it?
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
well, that was Sherry Bay's, that was one of her projects. And by the way, I think I related to you, but she asked me to come to that thing last Saturday.
And she didn't even show up.
Well, she was sick, is that
Well,
okay?
that's what I heard. That's what I heard.
No, she was sick, okay?
Okay.
And she also said wants to work with the Parks Foundation on some other projects. But don't, she really appreciated what we did before.
So she's not the bad guy here.
Well, I find that a little bit odd because they won't let anybody use anything the school has, not the tennis courts or the track or nothing. I mean, you can't.
This was a special project that involved a number of students. It was a students project, and they have another project coming up that they want us to help.
Like a beautification?
That's right.
It was students who live in Lodi, I'll bet you.
No, it wasn't, Jerry. It was not.
By the way, let's clarify. I don't have a thing against Lodi, whether it's here or in Colorado. I have nothing against it.
This was a group of students that were involved in a separate program at the high school. They weren't necessarily residents of Lodi.
And probably the FED.
Yeah, and they're looking for another project right now. And the assistant principal was standing next to me at that ceremony.
Well,
And I think Ben Reed in his position too, proactive, because Ben and the Mayor Pro Tem, Ms. Cantu, they worked hard to get us the Baptist Health, was it $7,500?
Yeah,
that we got?
absolutely.
Ben
I think
Ben's
Ben
working
was
hard.
instrumental in what happened, and it was dedication to the deceased city councilman that was killed in the automobile accident a while back. So, all of that is great. In fact, the city manager provided me this book, which supposedly is a list of all of the city properties. Well, now we got to add one more. And
Well,
for
no,
the
we
sake
just
of the
expand
newbies,
Lodi Park.
for the sake of the newbies, to let you know that for years, the staff of the city parks department was 6 people. They were responsible to cut the bar ditches in the city. Somehow or another, back years ago, the city manager on the back of an envelope is what we called it in the Air Force, handshook with TxDOT. Those guys have to cut from, I guess it's called 5 Points, the median out to County Road 130. And if you look at the parks that are around, when Alex Trevina was the head of the Parks Department, I think he's on streets and whatever, the Masons soccer fields, they had a water cannon. So the dilemma for the city was, when we crank up the water cannon and nobody's there to make sure that it doesn't grow legs, that's manpower. And it takes basically 2.5 days to water that field alone. Whenever there's a special event, for instance, when Congressman Cuellar showed up at the high school with money for the city, the Parks Department guys were the ones who did all the setup, moved all the chairs, do whatever, sort of like what we did that time, and we did all the chairs, and moved around. The city, in my opinion, has never had a manpower study to see what's required to maintain those parks. So the more that they add, there was a survey done with M&S Engineering out of, it's either Seguin or Lavernia, that asked people in the city to take the survey. There were more of us who live in the county responded to that survey than in the city. And one of the things they said is, don't build until you fix what's broken.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when the fight was going on about the sports complex, when Mr. Tejada was the mayor. So there's a lot of background that goes through here, but that doesn't get us back to who is the person that has the sour grapes against the Parks Foundation.
No, excuse me, not building until you fix is what the majority of the people that filled out the survey was saying? Is that what you're saying?
That was at the top.
Okay.
Somewhere in all these records that I personally spent time, effort, and money to research the very beginning. I've got a document that goes back to somebody claimed to be the Parks Foundation before it was ever a foundation, and they were sponsoring some kind of 5K run to go with it.
But the consensus was basically that not to build.
Short of exercising our constitutional rights, I don't know how many times that myself and Tomas Robles, in fact, if you look at the monthly meeting minutes that I put together, the old business 5B, Mr. Robles, on numerous occasions, used the citizens' comment at the city council meeting that met, was it Thursday nights, the second Thursday and the fourth Thursday? He repeatedly asked, why isn't the Parks Foundation getting the $1 for the water bill?
We still don't know the answer to that, do we?
Well, we do, and I will tell you also that we have approached the district attorney on the issue, because I didn't know until Mr. Sack pointed out and showed me his water bill where it said recreation fee, Floresville Parks Foundation. So to me, the city defrauded every resident and every owner of that.
Misappropriation of funds.
So, but anyhow, that doesn't get us on what we need to do.
Well, I've had my say. Y'all want to add anything to any of this about our future?
Do we just need to continue trying to get people involved and to see that if they're interested in being a part of it?
Well,
Yeah.
if we can get Paul and Nick and
Eduardo.
Eduardo, if we can get those three guys elected, maybe, maybe we can continue. But if we don't, we'll have to bring this up again at a future meeting. Maybe this is a good time to schedule another meeting.
Well, according to our bylaws, that's already, it's what, the second Wednesday now?
But we can't meet on Wednesdays in here
Well,
because
there's nothing to say you can't have an agenda item that you're gonna rewrite the bylaws. And one of the things that will probably need to be done is that all of the new guys and gals need to get the paperwork put together and get their bylaws and the other things, some of
Well-
the histories that are all in this right here.
Well, I have just sort of brushed off such as that in order to get us in a meeting. Remember, I had one set up for 2 weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, 13.
Jerry Lee in here said, yeah, you can't meet on Wednesday. It was the second Wednesday of the month. Can't meet on Wednesday because for the rest of this year and the rest of next year, they're having dance class in here. By the way, we have to put these tables back over here when we get through it.
Dance class in here?
Yes, ma'am.
It's an excellent dance floor.
There you go.
At any rate,
What kind of social dancing is
It's
it?
a nice Tuesday.
at any rate, well, the funny thing is, this is a dance room without a bar. Most dance rooms I've been around have a bar in them. It's off of the wall kind of thing where they put their hind foot up. At any rate,
Jerry,
yes,
I'll make a suggestion here. I don't know what your full agenda is, but I would think it would be proper to wait for the city council election to be over and to wait for the, we're gonna have some meetings after that and set an agenda, and one of the items on the agenda will be the Parks Foundation. We've agreed to that. We know that. Hopefully, we will have won all 3 spots. If we had not won all 3 spots, all bets are off, because if there's just one of us or 2 of us, doesn't make any difference. You have to have 3 of us.
well,
Now, no, wait. And as a backstop, we have 2 candidates that are going to be running in the May election. You may remember that the 2 candidates that are being retained, not part of this election, because they have to split things up. We agreed with that. There will be an election for two more candidates, 2 more spots in May. So,
Can you say who they are? Or?
yeah, well, I think hopefully we solve it on this election. But if
Right.
not, we have an opportunity
Okay.
to solve it with the next election.
well, as far as the regular meeting date goes, as long as we have to meet here, we can't meet on any Wednesday, not the second, not,
Why is Wednesday important?
Because it's in the bylaws.
he was bringing it up that it's in the bylaws that we meet on the second Wednesday. Is that not true?
Not that I know.
Well, initially it was the 3rd.
We had to change it from one Wednesday to a,
I know.
weren't we meeting on a Monday night for a while when I joined?
No, I don't think so. I think it was all on a Wednesday.
I can't recall now.
What would it take to change the bylaws to Tuesday?
Just
Just
a motion, a second, and a vote.
I'm
everybody,
motion that the meetings be changed to Tuesday
This time.
at this time.
Can we amend that motion to temporarily amend?
Okay, temporarily amend.
Because that way it's easier to, anybody want to make a second to that?
I'll second.
Got a lot of seconds.
the last time we changed it was September 12th of 2018.
2 years ago.
Okay, Gail mentioned.
Any discussion on this
Tuesday.
further?
Yes, I just want to make sure I have that right. Gail mentioned to move meeting to Tuesday evenings at
6:30.
6:30
Yeah.
at this location temporarily.
And that's Article 2,
This is,
paragraph 202, that the meeting shall start at 6:30, the second Wednesday of each month.
yeah, this is a temporary suspension of meeting, the regular meeting date in the bylaws. Am I saying this right?
Yeah.
And we have a second. Is there any further discussion one way or another? Then I call for a vote.
All those,
Aye.
aye.
In favor? Aye. Okay, unanimous.
Now, the bylaws also say that another meeting can be scheduled, it's called a special meeting, and the president has to, by phone, call each member to make sure that there's a quorum available to come back. So anytime the future foundation president deems it necessary, he can call a special meeting, and those provisions are set up.
Jerry, were you saying before that we could not meet here on a Wednesday?
We cannot meet in this room on any Wednesday through next year.
They're
Okay.
scheduled now.
I understand. Is there another room we can meet in?
Hell, I don't know.
Well, wait a second. I mean, they've got a lot of rooms around here, you know?
You'd think.
Yeah.
What about the jury room? It's on one side or the other.
Well, why don't we just find out from them what room?
Well, I can talk to Jerry Lee and find out,
Yeah.
but in the meantime, we've got a motion and a second, and we approved it. For the time being, let's say that I talk to the county over here about about a meeting, say, on the 10th of next month. That's the second Tuesday.
Second Wednesday?
And
Tuesday,
at that
second
time, I will ask her if there's another place where we can have our meeting.
You know, I noticed that the hike and bike thing was meeting in the beer hall, the beer warehouse.
Beer warehouse?
Yeah.
Well, we've met in the beer warehouse.
Yeah, we've
but it's
met,
been a long time.
There's a problem over there, I belong to another organization called the Lions. We want to do something there. I think they're having some problems with the maintenance of that building.
I'm listening.
So,
Well,
anyway, I've held meetings in other rooms in this area.
I had a question. We just voted to go ahead and have the meeting here at 6:30 on Tuesdays, temporarily, until this is resolved. I'm just curious about the locked door.
well, that's simple enough. I pick up the phone,
Okay.
as I did today, and I call this dispatcher.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that dispatcher has to do a turnover to the night dispatcher, who's there now. But that's not a problem. The dispatcher came out, he was locking it up when I showed up, and he unlocked it, and I showed him my chart and said that I'm with the Parks Foundation, and he motioned me in, and I held the door for this poor girl about to
This was yours.
on herself.
Is it mine?
Anyway,
So you can just call them then for next week, for the 10th?
let's leave it at this, shall we?
Okay.
I will talk to Jerry Lee, who has an office right across the way here, about the 10th of November, and we'll get to you about, look, one of my reasons for not wanting the presidency is I do not have internet service except this thing picks up towers when they're not fooling with them. So
Okay.
I will find a way to get to you about the 10th,
Okay.
and if it has to be the 12th, does anybody have a problem with that?
Just let me know.
And it's not a big
I'm
deal
gonna
to
be
change,
out.
all you gotta do would be a pen and ink change,
Okay.
and just have the page, the article, and I don't think I gave you, because we were supposed to meet
Yeah.
and do whatever. I'm sure both of you don't have the bylaws,
Yeah.
so
Well,
that's something that,
I'll do
We're gonna
my
have to talk
best to
about
get
the
it
next
scheduled in at 6:30 on the 10th, and get back to you.
Okay.
Do you have phone numbers for everybody? or just email?
I've got it all right here.
Okay,
I'll
well,
have to go back through it
sometime in
and
the
fix
next
it.
24 to 36 hours, let's do some
Okay.
coordinating.
So does that mean we're moving to B?
We're moving to letter B,
Okay,
item number 2.
that's mine. And Mr. President, acting, I'm tendering my resignation effective October the 10th. So I thought we were gonna meet on the 13th.
October?
And basically, the reason
Did you say
being
October
is,
the 10th?
that's when I did my letter.
Oh,
But I'm rendering my letter now if you want to read it. The reason we're doing it is my wife and I are in the process of getting our house ready to put on the market and we're moving. And I hate to dump all this in here on you, but I've got, like I said, I've got history in here from the day that, what the hell is her name now? Cranston, Cindy Cranston railroaded me because I was asking the right questions from the,
well, we all sort of got
from Lou
railroaded in.
Rosenberg, who at the time was the city lawyer after the original 7 in 2012 were appointed. And I hate to do this, but I wanted to do this September a year ago, but not to move. Because I feel like that there's personal animosity against me personally by some of these knuckleheads that have served the city council. To give you an example, they tried to blackball any of us that lived in the county to speak at the city council. Once the appointment was made, I routinely questioned it. I had participated with the Wilson County Patriots in a lot of different things dealing with the political angst among people. And I never said I was a resident of the county. I always answered it by, because I was appointed or voted as the president. I said, I'm Doug Jones, and I'm the president of your Parks Foundation. And City Councilman Johnny Ray Nieto in that public forum said, no, Mr. Jones, you're the president of I Hate the Danny Tejada Foundation. So I think that a lot of that angst is a personal, sort of like one of the other personal fights between the city council and Mary Helen Teakin and Jim Miller, where in 2012 they tried to recall them all and include the mayor and all 5 of the city council members.
Well,
There's people that hold long memories. So hopefully, with my departure, and I will assist you.
Boy, how
As
many
you
looks
go
like I have
with
a
it.
box of education to go through.
Yeah,
Well, I've got everything in there. I've
I'm
got
thinking,
pictures.
I'm thinking at some point, we need to do our best to get everybody who is an active member, Judy, why can I not say that man's name?
Eduardo?
Eduardo, for crying out loud.
Villarreal,
Yeah,
and what about Wade?
Vic?
we need to try to get all of these folks together in some kind of a meeting where we can sit down and go through this stuff, have nothing else on the agenda, call it an emergency meeting if you want to. We might need to have 2 of those or 3. But go through all this stuff so that we can get familiar with all of it. I walked in one night out of curiosity in the city council chambers over there, and these guys were meeting, and by the time I got out of there, Cindy Cranston had twisted my arm into the thing, and so here I am.
Okay.
But I'll entertain a motion to accept Doug's renegation,
I so move.
and second,
I abstain.
he can't second.
So it'll be
Okay.
4.
Gail seconds.
There's some issues with the resignation that all of y'all need to be aware of. Right now, our checking account The balance is $2,740.75. So don't, Mr. Rips, please don't put that in the paper. Because I was told years ago that a particular person with initials DT would be after our money. The first thing is that I believe that only Mr. Sack and myself have signature paperwork for the checking account. That needs to be taken care of.
Well, that'll be taken care of. If we can get a full house and elect ourselves a presiding officer, and at that time also a treasurer, and will you shut up?
Are you
Well,
talking to yourself?
This damn
Well,
thing here.
really, what we have to do is you'll have a meeting, you schedule it for the 10th. We'll have maybe 1 or 2 more people here than we have today. And we're gonna have to start building with people. So if we have other people that we know we can bring in, please do. I will. And that's how you're gonna have to grow the thing before you can start getting a
Yeah.
structure again.
I'm gonna talk to Mary Helen. Mary Helen lives down the street from where I lived for 32 years. And I've known her almost the whole time I've been here. I'm gonna see if she's interested
I
in
thought maybe it was Mr. Smith.
getting involved. And we talked about, at the beginning of the meeting, somebody who couldn't be here tonight.
Judy?
No. Oh, damn.
All right, but we're just gonna have to start building, Jerry.
Oh, you asked me about Linda Downs.
Yeah,
Maybe she, because I invited her to come out, not to be a member, I just invited her to come to the meeting. She said she couldn't, she's otherwise occupied.
I don't know. No, Linda lives down
And then
the,
lastly, probably more importantly than the checking account, the
Yeah.
state of Texas requires I have to submit as the designated agent.
Well, we may have to get us a
And
temporary.
you guys have to have one, and the requirements for designated agent is you can't have an address that's a post block. It has to be a physical location. Now, with the dance that we had in 2013, when we found out that the original foundation failed to report the income tax based upon the articles of incorporation with the state, they took away our right to operate as a 501c3, and the IRS did the same. The IRS, the reason why the foundation lost its capability is that Andy Jocelyn, in his creation paperwork, used the Civic Center's address. Well, the Civic Center's not a postal address, so the stuff that was sent to the Civic Center was returned to the IRS. So consequently, with the help of Mr. Rosenberg and Chris Hug, and $714 in the latter part of 2013, Jonelle Pipes, they worked hard, and we got our foundation 501c3 back. I have routinely, as the secretary, I'm president secretary, I do the IRS postcard. The state comptroller of public accounts has never asked after we got finalized. They've never asked us anything about any kind of
Well,
revenues. So other than paperwork, and there's a fee, I think it's like $75.
We're gonna, obviously, we're gonna have to reorganize, and that means getting as many people. What do we have, a total of 15 seats in this? Did somebody tell me that when I joined? 15 seats. So,
What are the requirements for being a member?
Show
Okay.
show up,
There's no
participate.
area
up. No, ma'am.
restrictions?
No.
or-
It's a foundation, sort of like the Leos.
okay.
So, we're gonna have to reorganize,
Well, Jerry,
depending on the election.
Jerry, one more suggestion, keep talking, but why don't you conclude this meeting so we can you can get out of here.
Well,
Well, I don't care about putting
it's coming up
Well, but
on
the
that
thing,
time. We've hit our,
but
we've
you're
hit
sort
our,
of done with your agenda here, that's,
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
hit our agenda. I wanted to conclude the meeting by saying we're gonna have to reorganize and all this stuff Doug is talking about. Doug, you may find yourself moved to wherever you're moving to
It ain't
and
gonna
and
happen
answering
overnight,
questions.
but, yeah,
And
we're-
answering questions that we send you.
No, I'll be here to do that.
So, are there any final questions, comments, statements? Yes,
The only
ma'am?
thing that I don't think was brought up was the treasurer, but other than that, let's see,
SOBE.
yeah.
Mr.
Mr. Acting Vice President, I make
that's
a
up to you.
motion that we conclude our meeting, adjourn. Take a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Okay, turn the
Thank
phone
you,
off.
Greg.